G'day everybody, my name is Sweeney and I am the Grandmaster here at StoryWeaver. I'm an author. I've published Rapture, Blood of the Innocent and a range of other titles, and most importantly I'm a veteran of the gaming world. I've been playing and running games for 35 years. I've run at cons, I run weekly game sessions, sometimes more than once a week. My wife, who is not yet a gamer, 25 years married, still not a gamer, I'm working on it. She is long suffering, but she does recognize that gaming for me is, it is so much a part of me, so much a part of my life. And that's because I get to really communicate with people. It's a form of self-expression. Then behind me you can see a bunch of awards and things that I've won, and I'm very proud of them. Those are all the things which I won for game mastering and gaming, but this is the one that I'm most proud of. This is my little Gaming and Excellence trophy that was given by the Sydney Role-Playing Game Association. And I was given that for the game mastering, primarily for the game mastering that I do at their conventions. There are 2 conventions every year and I try to run a table every single time. Now what this has meant is that over the many years that I've been running games, I have run games for pretty much every sort of personality you can imagine, from people who are very experienced gamers and they really want that hack and slash and the miniatures and the munchkins and the rules, to people who are narrative storytellers and they really want to engage in the character and they don't care about the rules. And I've run it with people who have got anger management issues, and I've run it with people who are genuinely and unfortunately mentally unstable and how to deal with them. I've run games at hospitals for young children who have had, in some cases, severe trauma. In other cases, have been suffering from all number of maladies. And so I've got, in short, I've got a huge experience, breadth of experience in running games. Now, one of the things that we do get asked a fair bit is, how do you run this particular game? For example, we've got Hail. How do you run Hail? Or how do you run Rapture? And so forth. And the issue actually isn't how to run that game. We can talk about those, in the rule books. The real issue is, how do you be the best game master you can possibly be? Now, in this series of videos and write-ups, we're going to actually create a bit of an omnibus about what makes a good game master. And we're going to look at not only the personal side of things, such as the traits of a good game master. We're going to look at some of the techniques that you can actually use to build worlds, to write your own adventures, to prepare, and then going into actually running the game. So we've got just massive amounts of ground to cover. And we know full well that this will never be exhaustive. In fact, one of the most important things that you can do is engage with us. Come onto the Facebook site, give us your ideas, argue with us, tell us what works in your games and what doesn't work. And from that we're going to be able to create a community experience that really looks at the game mastering issue. Now, I will say to kick off this series that there are a couple of key things that I think all good game masters should know. The first thing is relax. I see a lot of new game masters getting very nervous when they first go into that game, their very first game. And the reason for it is really obvious. The #1 fear of humans, the #1 fear, above spiders, above cockroaches, above death, which incidentally is fear number 7, the most important fear is the fear of speaking in front of your peers, standing up and speaking. So you can imagine what it's like being a game master. I mean, it's really terrifying, and I get that. So you need to relax and understand that game mastering is not about being judged. It's about being of service. And we're going to talk a little bit about that later on. But if you go into game mastering as you are there not to be judged by your friends, because they won't be judging you. You're there to give them a great time, to take them to a new world, to take them somewhere from your imagination and theirs. And just relax about that. Just be happy with that. And you're going to have some games that fail. You're going to have some absolute bomb out sessions. Well, that's okay. Learn from them, talk about them with your friends, say, that worked well, that didn't work well, and then come back the next time fully invigorated. Every new game is a new chance for a new adventure. The other thing that's really important is don't just wing your games. If you think that you can just walk up there with no game plan and run an adventure, you're kidding yourself. And it's not even enough just to have an idea of an adventure. You can't just say, oh, I think that we'll have the kids go and find, I don't know, A pirate treasure, yeah, that's a good idea because they want to run a pirate game. Doesn't work. You need a little bit more thought than that. But the flip side of that is if you're too prescriptive, your games are going to be unenjoyable. You may as well be writing a book. Another really useful tip is to be organized. Don't be that messy GM who can't find that piece of information or whatever. Now this is really important. I cannot stress how important this is when you're running a campaign, when one story leads on to the next story that leads on to the next story. But even within a game session, I find myself sometimes, especially in games where there's a lot of NPCs, this is very typical of Rapture games, where you get a lot of NPCs. You need to make sure you know which character is where on the space station and where the monster is, who's eating those characters, and all of that's happening invisible to the players. And you need to be able to do that in your head, or better still, by not being messy, because let's face it, our heads are messy, you need to do that on paper. And so we'll be talking about some tips and tricks about being organized both in the game and between game sessions. Now this is a really important tip. If you say that you're going to be the game master, especially at a con, but even just with your gaming group, if you say you're going to be the game master, do not cop out. I'm going to say that again, don't cop out. And here's the reason for it. If you say that you're going to run a game and people are excited about coming to that game, or even if they're just marginally excited about coming to the game, and then you don't show up, or you don't give a lot of warning if you do have a problem, you just, nah, I'm not going to do it tonight, don't feel like it. If you do that, then what you're doing is you're breaking your word. And more importantly, you're breaking your word to your friends or to people that you're being of service with. And they will start listening for that type of attitude right through, not just in your games, but everywhere. So it's really important. If you're going to be a game master, stick to being that game master when you say. The last thing I'm going to say is that, and this is an interesting one, when you're in a game, there is a tendency for particularly new game masters to let your players get away with stuff. And this particularly shows up where during character creation for very inexperienced GMs, when you're one of your players says, right, I want to be a space marine and I'm going to carry a big ass blaster and I'm going to have power armor that will stop all bullets and I'm going to have a scion whip. Okay, now that's in a game of Rapture, not Warhammer 40k, and you have to go yourself, well, you know what? Nah, that's not that world setting, sorry, no. And you get players who try and create characters that are munchkins. And you can allow that to some extent, especially in a game that is oriented towards miniatures or that sort of power gaming. But I do encourage you to try and manipulate, if we will, or encourage your players to create characters that exist within that world setting. The other side of things is that actually when you're playing the game, there can be a tendency to allow people to get away with pretty much anything. So, you know, a good example is somebody wants to go and punch this big alien creature demon thing which is going to eat their friend. You know, I've got nothing else, I'm going to punch him. By all means, let them go up and punch them. But have the monster turn around and rip their face off. You know, you've got to be prepared to be a little bit brutal and kill off your characters, kill off your favorite players. You've got to do that, and here's why. If you're not prepared to go that extra mile, if you're not prepared to actually be the enemy, then the players will not feel any tension in the game. There'll be no emotional context to the game. And that will destroy the game. So, you have to be their friend, you have to let them get away with stuff, you have to let them do stuff that's stupid, and then you've got to be prepared to make them pay the consequences of that. So, don't try and be their friend, try and be their servant, and that sometimes means that you have to be evil as well as good. Now, those are a few very quick tips. In later videos, we're going to look at how to actually put together a game, how to select the sort of game that your gaming group wants to run. We're going to look at, a lot at the psychology of players, because there are very different types of players out there, and you need to be able to very quickly understand those players and bring them into the game. There's a whole range of things to do with world building, with actually running games, with planning games, with documenting games, with writing up the synopsis. There's also, we're going to be looking at how do you actually put together a con game? How do you build up a bit of a following? How do you build up your own game group? So we're going to look at all of these areas in quite a lot of detail. So we're looking forward to it, and we will see you in later videos. Have happy gaming, and may rocks not fall and kill you all. Bye.